I came home to find my college savings gone and my parents smiling like nothing happened. My name is Ethan Walker, and the moment that should have been the proudest of my life turned into the most humiliating, gut-wrenching hour I've ever lived through. I was standing at the university's financial aid office, dorm key in one hand, suitcase in the other, beaming with hope. It was move-in day. Around me, students buzzed with nervous excitement, hugging their families, taking photos under the school's banner, laughing about roommate assignments. I was finally here freshman year at North Mountain Tech, the place I'd dreamed of since middle school. Full-ride scholarship covered most of my tuition, but my family had promised to cover the rest, housing, books, meals from a savings fund they'd kept for me since I was 12. At least that's what I thought. When the clerk behind the glass tapped her keyboard and frowned, I didn't think much of it. Maybe the system was slow, but then she looked up at me and said flatly, "Mr. Walker, your payment didn't go through. There are insufficient funds on file." The words hit like a punch. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. It took a second to load, but when it did, my heart stopped. The account labeled Ethan College Fund showed $0.12. Not 12, not 120, 12 cents. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I refreshed the page 3 times like maybe it was some kind of glitch. It wasn't. My savings, all $31, $278 of it was gone. I checked the transaction log. 3 days earlier, there was a transfer labeled Walker Family Holdings, LLC. Capital injection. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew who it pointed to. I stepped outside the building, heart-pounding hands, trembling. I called my dad. It rang twice before he picked up. "Hey, bud." All moved in no. "What happened to my college fund?" Pause. Then casually, too casually, he said, "Yeah, we meant to call. There was an emergency at the print shop. Press broke down. We had to pull the money to keep it afloat, but don't worry, you're still part of the family. You'll help us get through this, right?" I nearly dropped the phone. That money wasn't theirs. It was mine. It was my future, my escape. But in that moment, they took it from me with no warning, no apology, like it was a company expense, not a betrayal of trust. I stood there in front of that concrete dorm building, watching other freshmen hugging their parents goodbye while my own had gutted my dream behind my back. And that was the moment something in me shifted. For years, I had followed the path they approved, helped out at the family business, played the good son. But now I saw the truth. I was never meant to leave. They didn't raise me to fly, they raised me to inherit their burden. If you've ever been in a moment where your future collapsed in front of you, where everything you counted on vanished without warning, pause here and let me know in the comments what that moment was for you. Because what I did next wasn't just emotional. It was calculated, cold, necessary. And it started the chain reaction that tore apart everything they tried to control. If you've ever felt trapped by expectations or betrayed by the people who said they had your back, leave a like, because this story might just be yours too. You don't just walk away from a betrayal like that. It sits with you. It coils around your spine, tightens every time you try to breathe, and whispers you thought you mattered. After the call, I didn't go home. I didn't go back into the financial aid office either. I walked. Just walked. Around the edge of campus, through the quiet streets nearby, until I found a little diner with a chipped blue awning and a seat in the corner where no one could see me falling apart. I ordered a coffee I couldn't afford and stared out the window for hours. Everything I had worked for, late nights, studying, skipping parties, grinding through AP physics while my friends coasted, was for nothing. My parents didn't believe in my future. They believed in ink and toner and a damn printing press. Growing up, my family ran Walker Printing Co., a third-generation print shop tucked between a bait store and an auto glass place in Fort Carson, Colorado. People in town loved it. The Walkers, they'd say, always deliver quality. My grandfather printed wedding invites there. My dad printed campaign signs. I stacked paper and swept floors every summer from age 12. The place smelled like ink and metal and stale ambition. But I never loved it. Not the way they did. I loved robotics, building things, solving problems with code and gears. I built my first AI-driven rover in junior year and won the state science fair. My mom clapped proud. My dad joked, "Too bad robots can't run the print shop." I laughed along then, but it wasn't a joke. That shop was more than a building, it was their identity, and I was supposed to carry it on. My parents were never cruel, but they were controlling in a way that didn't look like control. They said things like, "We're just protecting you, or you'll understand when you're older." My decisions were suggestions. My dreams were nice ideas. And that college fund, it was a leash disguised as a gift. That day at the diner, I pulled out my laptop. My acceptance letter glowed back at me like a ghost. I typed an email to the university asking if there were any last-minute emergency aid options. I got an auto reply, "Applications closed." Please reapply next semester. It felt like the door slammed shut in my face. That night, I got on a bus back to Fort Carson. I didn't tell my parents I was coming. I used the back door key and walked into the kitchen like a shadow. They were in the living room talking numbers. My mom glanced up and said, "Ethan, that was fast. You think about what we said." Think about what they said. They expected me to nod, take a job at the shop, and pretend the theft of my future was just a rough patch. "I'm not staying," I told them. Dad stood up. "Then what are you doing here?" I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm collecting what's mine." That's when I noticed something interesting. The company's books, payroll invoices, vendor logs were all open on the dining table. My mom's laptop screen showed the banking app. Their business accounts were linked. And I still had access. It wasn't illegal. I was listed as junior operations manager. They even used my name on some of the tax forms to save on liability. They gave me access thinking I'd never use it. But betrayal changes you. If you've ever sat across from someone you trusted knowing they'd smile while gutting your dreams, tell me where you were when it hit you. What did you do? What did you wish you had the courage to do? Because I had just enough courage and just enough anger. And now I had a plan. The plan wasn't some master stroke of genius. It didn't involve hacking or high-level revenge. It was simple, clean, legal. And it started with one password. You see, growing up as the tech kid in a family business that still used fax machines gave me more power than they realized. When I was 16, Dad asked me to help set up a new cloud-based accounting system. I did more than just install it. I became the administrator, the one with full back-end access. They never changed the credentials. Not once. That night after they went to sleep, I sat on the couch with the glow of my old laptop in front of me. Hands steady, mind sharp, heart pounding. I logged in. Bank of the Rockies business account, login successful. Payroll, vendor payments, client invoices. All running through 2 linked checking accounts, both in the business's name, both tied to the same tax ID that included me. First, I reviewed the flow money came in from clients paid into the primary account, which auto-forwarded a chunk every 2 weeks into a reserve account usually used for equipment maintenance and large orders. That's where my college fund had gone. That's where they hid it. So I didn't take anything. I didn't move a cent. I froze it. One click and I temporarily disabled all auto transfers. Then I changed the admin privileges, locking everyone else out. I left a note in the account memo log that simply read, "This money belonged to my future. Consider it on hold until you start respecting it." Then I shut the laptop. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my childhood bed, surrounded by the old posters they never let me take down, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd gone too far or not far enough. At dawn, the yelling started. Dad burst into my room, phone in hand. "Did you touch the accounts?" I sat up. "No, I locked them." "Do you know what you've done?" I stood. "Do you?" He stared at me like I was someone he didn't recognize. Maybe I wasn't. "You've got 30 minutes to fix this," he said. I walked past him. "You've had 18 years. They threatened, pleaded, called me selfish, called me ungrateful, said things like, "We did everything for you and you're breaking this family." But I didn't budge. Because deep down I knew they weren't mad about the money. They were mad I stopped playing the role. Later that morning, my uncle showed up. He handled the books once a month. He thought he could talk me down. "Son, you don't understand how hard it is to run a business." "I do," I said. "You just don't understand how hard it is to give up your dream for someone else's." By noon, I was gone again. I didn't have a dorm. I didn't have a bed at school, but I wasn't staying in that house. So I crashed on a friend's couch near campus, started applying for every part-time job I could find, janitorial, tutoring, night shift at a gas station. Anything that could keep me close to that school. Because even if I couldn't enroll now, I wasn't giving up on that place. I was going to get there one way or another. And if you've ever had to claw your way toward your future with everything stacked against you, then you know revenge isn't always about payback. Sometimes it's just about refusing to disappear quietly. I thought freezing the account would buy me time, give me a breather, force them to acknowledge what they did. But I underestimated how fast people panic when money stops moving. 2 days after I walked out, I got a call from a blocked number. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. First from Mom. "Please, Ethan, your dad's furious. You made your point, now unlock it." Then came a different tone. "You don't understand how badly the company needs that cash. We have orders, employees." That one hit a nerve. So I replied, "Did you care how badly I needed my future?" No response. But they didn't stop. My cousin left voicemails. My aunt called me disrespectful. My dad emailed me a PDF titled "Consequences of Unauthorized Access," like I'd somehow broken into Fort Knox instead of protecting what was mine. They were scrambling, and for once I wasn't the one afraid. Still, the silence from my mom bothered me. She hadn't texted since that last message, so I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Hi, I said. There was a pause. Then softly, why are you doing this? Because you didn't ask, I said. You just took. I'm not a savings account. I'm your son. She started crying, quiet at first, then heavier. We were scared, Ethan. The shop. It's all we have. And I was all I had, I said. That silence, that raw hanging moment wasn't anger. It was recognition. That night I sat alone at the edge of campus again, watching the lights from the dorm windows I couldn't enter. And something strange happened. A girl I vaguely knew from high school spotted me. Her name was Jamie. She was a year older. We'd both been in robotics club but barely spoke back then. She stopped, tilted her head, and asked, "Aren't you supposed to be in that building?" I laughed bitterly. Yeah, I guess I missed my shot. We talked. She listened. Then she said something I didn't expect. You know the bookstore's hiring, right? And I have a couch that doesn't squeak when you breathe. I stared at her. Why? She shrugged. Because people like us, we don't quit just because someone else pulled the plug. That night I moved into Jamie's apartment. Fold-out couch, wobbly fan, smelled like old textbooks and instant noodles. But it felt like freedom. The next morning I walked into the campus bookstore and got the job. $10.25 an hour. Not much, but it was something I earned. And it reminded me I didn't need to beg to belong. I'd find a way. If you're still watching this far, maybe you've been in a moment like that when you realized no one was coming to save you and you had to build the raft yourself. If you've ever had to choose between survival and self-worth, drop a comment below. Where were you when you chose you? Because this was just the beginning of that choice for me. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted something deeper, my voice back. And the more they pushed, the louder I became. By the way, if you're watching this late at night or maybe somewhere quiet where it feels like the whole world forgot about you, hit like, you're not alone. Stay with me. The next part changes everything. Life got small but clear. I worked the morning shifts at the campus bookstore. Stacked shelves rang up overpriced hoodies and restocked boxes of Scantrons. Between shifts, I camped out at the campus library reading textbooks I technically wasn't enrolled to use. I sat in on lectures from the hallway, earbuds tucked beneath my hoodie so I could pretend I was listening to music, not auditing advanced mechatronics without a name on the roll. No one asked questions, no one stopped me. And that was the gift in all this invisibility. My parents thought they'd erased my options. But what they really did was erase their grip. One night around 11:30 p.m., I was closing up the bookstore when a man in a North Mountain Tech windbreaker came in looking lost. Said he was there for a last-minute pickup, some department order that never got scanned. I helped him find the box. We chatted while I rang him up. His name was Dr. Ellis, professor of robotics and AI systems. He paused, then looked at me closely. You're not in my class, are you? But I've seen you in the hall outside room 209. I froze. I just liked the subject, I said carefully. He nodded, and you understand it. I took a chance. Told him about my high school rover, about winning state, about what I'd built from salvage parts. I spoke with the kind of fire I used to keep to myself, afraid it'd burn too bright in a family that only knew black and white ink and invoice paper. He listened. Then he said, "Come to my lab tomorrow. Show me what you've got." I didn't sleep that night. I showed up early, trembling with a mix of hope and fear. The lab was packed with machines that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi film, multi-jointed arms, drone docks, AI vision prototypes. I felt like I'd stepped into the world I'd always imagined but was told I didn't belong in. Dr. Ellis gave me an old simulation problem, told me to debug it. I solved it in half the time he expected. Then he asked me to design a logic path for an autonomous bot to navigate obstacles. By the end of the day, he offered me a non-paid assistantship in his lab. It wasn't official since I wasn't enrolled, but he said, some students pay tens of thousands for this kind of access. You've earned it. Keep showing up. I left the lab buzzing. That night, as I stood on Jamie's apartment balcony with a microwaved burrito in hand, I realized something that stuck with me since. You don't need permission to be who you are, just proximity and persistence. And every day I kept showing up was one more day my parents' grip faded. They didn't know about the lab. They didn't know about Dr. Ellis. To them, I was just being stubborn. A phase, a tantrum. But I was quietly building something far bigger than they could imagine. Something of my own. Weeks passed, then a month, and the calls slowed. The first week, my parents rang my phone 3 times a day, then once every other day. By the end of the month, it was mostly silent except for the occasional message from Dad like, "You can't ignore your family forever. You're being childish. Grow up. We did what we had to. You'll understand one day." But I already understood. I understood that they had written a story for my life without ever asking if I wanted to be part of it. And when I stepped out of it even gently, they treated it as betrayal, as rebellion. But I wasn't rebelling. I was becoming. The job at the bookstore barely covered food, and I was crashing on Jamie's couch for free, though I pitched in with laundry and cooked when I could. The lab hours weren't paid, but Dr. Ellis started handing me side projects code reviews for his graduate students, helping undergrads debug their build's small fixes no one wanted to touch. Quietly, he started paying me under the table, a couple $100 every 2 weeks. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt earned. One night, as I was closing up the store, a man in a polo shirt came in holding a flyer for our printer rental service. He looked familiar. I realized he was one of the board members from my parents' town, a local politician who used our shop for campaign banners. He handed me the flyer and asked, "So do you guys do full-color rush orders?" I paused. "We used to," I said. "I think they're struggling now." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I know. I called yesterday and your dad said you were still working there, that you'd handle my order." My stomach turned. They were lying about me, using my name probably to hold on to clients, maybe even forging emails or claiming I was still part of the business. I knew what I had to do. That night I logged into the business email system. Yep, still had access. And sure enough, there were emails sent under my name. "Looking forward to working on your banner. We'll prioritize your order, Ethan." They were pretending I was still there, pretending I was still theirs. So I drafted one final message from my personal email and sent it to every vendor, client, and business partner listed in our shared contacts. "This is Ethan Walker. As of date, I am no longer affiliated with Walker Printing Co. Any communications under my name are unauthorized. Please direct all business inquiries to the current owners. Thank you." I expected backlash, but what I got was silence and a few quiet replies. "Thank you for the honesty. Wishing you all the best. Didn't know. Appreciate the update." I was reclaiming my name. That night, Jamie and I sat on the balcony again, sharing a cheap six-pack and staring at the stars. She asked me something I hadn't dared say out loud. "Do you think you'll ever talk to them again?" I stared into the distance. "I don't know, maybe, but not like this. Not while they think love means ownership." She nodded, and for a moment the silence felt like closure. But I wasn't done yet. There was one more move I had to make. I didn't set out to destroy them. I just wanted my life back. But when someone crosses a line, burns your future to keep their past alive, at some point you stop asking for peace. You start asking for justice. 2 months in, I got a letter from the IRS. Not for me, for the business. But it came to my old address, forwarded by mistake. Inside, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see, a tax discrepancy notice. One of the quarterly filings had errors. Big ones. And my name still listed as an operations manager on one of the 1099s. It clicked. They hadn't removed me. They were still leveraging my credentials for write-offs, possibly to fudge payroll or hide vendor debts under my name. If the IRS dug deeper and saw the accounts linked to me, I could be on the hook. And that was the final straw. I booked a free legal consultation at a campus-affiliated legal aid clinic. I brought everything: emails, tax documents, bank records. The young attorney flipped through the folder, eyebrows raised. "You know, this could be considered identity misuse, right?" I nodded. "And you're sure you want to press this?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I'm not pressing anything. I'm protecting myself." He nodded. "Then let's file it." That night, for the first time, I felt something strange relief. The kind that comes when you stop hoping they'll fix it and start fixing it yourself. But it wasn't just about paperwork. It was about power. And somewhere between my first rejection email and that legal filing, I realized I wasn't powerless anymore. The next morning, I walked back into Dr. Ellis's lab with a spark in my step. He noticed immediately. Something good happened. I smiled. Let's just say, I stopped asking for permission. He grinned. That's the spirit. Later that afternoon, I presented a design concept for a modular robotics arm, adaptable, low-cost, and scalable. He was so impressed, he pulled me aside after and said, "You ever think about applying for that innovation grant? You've got something real here." "I can't. I'm not enrolled." He paused, then said something I'll never forget. "Ethan, enrollment is paperwork. Talent is undeniable." That night, I started the paperwork. Applied as a part-time student for spring. Dr. Ellis wrote the recommendation. Jamie proofread my essay, and I submitted it with a shaky finger and a prayer. If you're still listening and you've ever stood in front of a door that slammed shut in your face, if someone ever told you you're not allowed or you're not enough, I want you to hear this. That was never the truth. And if that door slammed, maybe it's because something better is waiting to be built by your hands. Tell me below what door slammed on you. What did you build instead? Share it. Someone else might need your story. And if you've made it this far into mine, you're already part of that rebuilding. So don't leave just yet. What's coming next? It's the moment that changed everything. January came fast. Campus was blanketed in snow. Students rushed past in coats, steam rising from coffee cups and breath alike. For the first time, I wasn't standing outside the system looking in. I was in it, officially enrolled, part-time, paid entirely out of pocket. But that student ID in my hand, it might as well have been a golden ticket. The bookstore job kept me afloat. The under-the-table hours in Dr. Ellis's lab became more structured. And Jamie had gone from girl who offered her couch to something I wasn't quite ready to name yet. But it was real. So was the anger that simmered beneath it all. See, while I'd been building something new my parents had been unraveling, a mutual friend from town texted me one evening. "Hey, heard your dad lost the Chamber of Commerce contract. What happened?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I already knew. Without the auto transfers, without me handling back-end finances, their books were chaos. Clients were leaving, taxes were late, and worst of all, they couldn't blame me anymore. I'd made it clear I was out. But people like them, they don't go quiet. 2 weeks into the spring semester, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a man named Barry, someone who used to supply materials to our shop. He said, "Hey, Ethan, just wanted to give you a heads up. Your mom's been saying some things telling folks you stole from them, that you wrecked the company out of spite." I let out a long breath. "Thanks, Barry." And then I realized something. Their last weapon was my reputation. They couldn't touch me financially anymore, but they could try to poison the well, make sure no one wanted to work with me again. Maybe even scare off future employers, grad schools, collaborators. So I did something I'd never done before I went public. I posted a single message on social media, just one. It read, "When someone steals from your future, calls it love, then blames you for walking away. Tell your story, because silence protects no one." I didn't name them, I didn't drag them, but people knew. That post had exploded. Dozens of classmates commented. Some I'd never even spoken to. I feel this. Been there. My parents tried to sign loans in my name too. A girl from another department messaged me privately. "Thank you, I thought I was the only one." And just like that, my story wasn't just mine anymore. It was ours. It was every kid who was told we sacrificed everything for you while their dreams were gutted. Every student who saw their future pawned for a second-hand business no one asked them to inherit. That's when I understood. I hadn't just frozen the account. I'd thawed the truth. And I wasn't alone anymore. Spring break hit differently that year. Most students were packing bags for trips home, beach getaways, or ski cabins. Me, I was in the lab tinkering, soldering, and refining the prototype for my modular robotics arm. I didn't miss the sun or the sand. I had purpose now. And it burned brighter than any vacation could. But just as I was tightening a joint on the shoulder gear, I got an email. "Subject Walker Printing Co. Urgent." From my father. I hovered over it for a full minute before opening it. "Ethan, things have gone too far. The bank froze our operating account. Your mother's blood pressure spiked last week. I hope you're proud of yourself. If there's anything left of the sun I raised, fix this." I stared at the screen, numb. There it was again. Guilt. Wielded like a weapon. But I wasn't a child anymore. And I didn't owe them silence just because they called it love. They'd forged my name. They'd emptied my fund. They'd tried to erase me from my own life. So I didn't reply. Instead, I walked outside into the chilled spring air, found a bench outside the engineering building, and just breathed. That night, Jamie and I had dinner at a cheap taco truck off campus. Midway through a bite of carnitas, she glanced at me and said, "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "They want me to fix what they broke." She took a sip of her soda, then said, "They're trying to hand you the shovel and the guilt. You don't owe them your back." That line stuck with me. You don't owe them your back. A week later, something else arrived, this time by certified mail. A formal request to release funds tied to the business account that was still in my name. It was wrapped in legal jargon but translated to "Please undo the damage you caused us by giving up everything you built." And I didn't even flinch. Instead, I brought it to campus legal services and let them handle it. I signed the release, but only to protect myself, not them. I had the terms locked down: no liability, no claims, no contact. That night, I posted one more message on social media. Spring cleaning. Today, I signed away the last tie to a business I never chose. I didn't get my college fund back. I didn't get an apology. But I got something better: peace. If you've ever had to sign away a piece of your past to protect your future, know this. You didn't lose. You chose. If you're watching this right now, wherever you are, on break, on the bus, in your bed, past midnight, leave a comment. What did you have to let go of to move forward? Drop it below. Let someone else know they're not alone. This was my line in the sand. And after this, I wasn't looking back. By mid-April, something unexpected happened. Dr. Ellis called me into his office, nothing unusual except he was grinning like a kid who had just pulled off a magic trick. He gestured to the chair. "Sit down." I did. Then he slid a thin folder across the desk. "You're in," he said. I blinked. "In what?" "The North Mountain Undergraduate Research Fellowship. Full ride, stipend, full lab access. They were blown away by your modular robotics pitch." I couldn't speak. For a moment, I thought it was a prank. But inside the folder was a letter, official university letterhead, signed by the committee, my name in bold. Dear Ethan Walker, congratulations! You've been selected as this year's Research Fellow in Engineering Innovation. I swallowed hard. This was real. This was mine. No loans, no family funds, no strings. Just merit, persistence, my work. I walked out of that office and into the sunlight. For the first time in over a year, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I was running toward it. That night, Jamie and I celebrated with instant ramen and dollar store sparkling cider on her apartment rooftop. She pulled out a small cupcake with a single birthday candle in it. What's this for? I asked. She smiled. Your rebirth. We laughed. But it stuck with me. This was a new beginning. But even rebirths come with echoes. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I hadn't saved, but I knew it by heart. Mom! I stared at it. The ringing seemed louder than usual. Or maybe it was just the weight of every unanswered question crashing back in. Was she going to apologize? Was she going to ask for help? Or worse, pretend like nothing happened? I didn't answer. I let it ring out. And that silence. It didn't feel empty. It felt like a door finally closing. And a second door opening, one I'd built myself. A week later, Dr. Ellis announced I'd be presenting our project at the National Robotics Expo in Chicago. Travel paid. Lodging covered. My name on the keynote list. I stood in the lab that evening staring at my badge. Ethan Walker, research lead. Not assistant. Not intern. Lead. And in that moment, I made a quiet vow. Whatever comes next, I'll face it with my name, my own name. No lies, no shadows, just me. Because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving my parents wrong. It was about proving me right. I had something to say, and the world was finally listening. Chicago was electric. From the moment I stepped off the plane, I felt it a city, humming with possibility, ambition running through its veins like the trains racing overhead. This wasn't just my first trip to a major robotics conference. It was my first step onto a stage where nobody knew the old Ethan, the quiet kid from a printing shop in Colorado. All they saw was a young engineer ready to change the game. The National Robotics Expo sprawled across the expansive floor of the McCormick Place Convention Center. Booths glittered with futuristic technology drones, self-driving vehicles, AI systems that recognized emotions. And there, right in the center, was our setup, North Mountain Tech's modular robotics lab. My robotics arm was front and center, sleek and precise under the bright spotlights. Dr. Ellis clapped a hand on my shoulder. Ready. My mouth was dry. Yeah, I think so. He smiled knowingly. You've been ready for this your whole life. Go own it. When the clock struck 11, the lights dimmed and the MC called my name. I stepped onto the stage, the buzz of the crowd fading into silence as my slides came to life behind me. For 20 minutes, I walked the audience through every phase of development, every hurdle we'd overcome, every sleepless night spent soldering wires and debugging code. When the arm moved gracefully, picking up an egg without breaking it, maneuvering delicate glass tubes, adapting seamlessly to unexpected obstacles, the auditorium burst into applause. I heard cheers, whistles, saw faces lit up with excitement. In that moment, I was no longer a pawn in someone else's story. I was the author of my own. As I stepped off stage, shaking hands and exchanging business cards, something caught my eye. In the back row stood a man I recognized immediately. My father. My heart froze. He looked older somehow. His shoulders hunched, eyes, weary hair streaked with gray I hadn't remembered seeing before. Our eyes met. He held my gaze for a long moment, then gave a slight nod, half respect, half resignation. Then he turned and walked away. My phone buzzed moments later with a message. I didn't come here to cause trouble. I just wanted to see for myself. You looked good up there. I'm sorry it took me this long to understand. I stared at the screen, emotions swirling, anger, pain, relief, confusion. Was this an apology or just another strategy? Jamie came up beside me, sensing my tension. You okay? I showed her the text. She read silently, then gently touched my hand. You don't owe him forgiveness, but you do owe yourself peace. She was right. Holding on to the bitterness wouldn't give me back the years lost or erase the betrayal. It would only keep me tethered to a past I had outgrown. I took a deep breath and replied, Thanks for coming. I'm okay now. Take care of Mom. And for the first time, I meant it. If you're watching this now, maybe from your room late at night on a crowded train or between classes, tell me, have you ever faced someone who wronged you and found peace in letting go? Share your story below. Someone else out there needs to hear it. Because the truth is, freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet choice to let go, walk away, and finally embrace the future waiting for you. I turned back to Jamie, to the lights, to the audience still buzzing with excitement, and knew I'd taken back what mattered most, myself. When I returned to campus after Chicago, life felt different. Sharper, brighter, clearer somehow. I was no longer Ethan Walker, the kid whose future was locked behind parental expectations and financial sabotage. Now I was Ethan Walker, the engineer, the researcher, the student who stood on a national stage and owned his story. But as anyone who's ever been through this kind of transformation will tell you, the universe tests your growth right when you feel strongest. It was a chilly evening in late spring when I got the call. The area code was familiar home. My heartbeat quickened, but I answered calmly. Hello? Ethan, it's Mom. Her voice cracked slightly. No demands, no accusations, just softness. Is everything all right? Not exactly. Your dad, he collapsed today at work. He's okay now, stable. But they said it was stress-related. I don't even know why I'm calling, I just thought you'd want to know. My stomach tightened. Despite everything, despite the anger and the distance, the instinctive worry for family still ran deep. Is he in the hospital? Yes, but stable. They think he'll be released tomorrow. I just wanted you to hear it from me. Silence hung between us, heavy with years of unspoken words. Finally, I said quietly, "Thank you for telling me." I hung up and stared out my dorm window into the night, the campus lights blurred by a sudden rush of emotions. Jamie appeared at my doorway a few minutes later. Hey, you okay? I don't know. I admitted, sitting heavily on the bed. My dad collapsed today. Stress-induced, apparently. She sat beside me quiet for a moment before gently asking, "What do you want to do?" I thought about that for a long time. What did I want to do? What was right for me, not just as a son, but as someone who had spent the past year fighting to reclaim his independence and dignity. Finally, I met her eyes and said, I need to go see him, but not for them, for me. 2 days later, I was driving back to Colorado. It was strange pulling into my hometown. The streets felt smaller somehow, the buildings older. The mountains that had once seemed comforting now felt like barriers trying to hold me back. When I walked into my childhood home, Mom met me at the door. She looked smaller, tired. Without speaking, she hugged me. It felt cautious, fragile, like she feared I'd break away. "He's in the living room," she said softly. My father was seated in his old chair, pale but alert. When he saw me, his eyes widened with surprise, relief, guilt, so many emotions at once. "You came?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." An awkward silence settled between us, filled with unspoken apologies and unfinished conversations. Finally, he broke it. "I'm sorry, Ethan. For everything. I realize now, I was trying to build something permanent, but I didn't see what I was breaking in the process." Hearing those words finally felt strangely surreal. For so long I had imagined what an apology might sound like. Yet now that it came, it didn't feel triumphant or satisfying. It just felt sad. Because the truth was, the damage had been done and no apology could rewrite history. "But it could begin a new chapter." "I appreciate you saying that," I said carefully. "I can't forget what happened, but maybe we can start again differently." My dad nodded slowly, his eyes filling with tears. "I'd like that." As I left that evening, stepping onto the familiar porch that had witnessed so many childhood memories, I knew I hadn't compromised. I hadn't folded back into their story, I had written my own. Choosing compassion over bitterness wasn't weakness. It was strength. A strength that freed me completely. On the long drive back to campus, the mountains in my rearview mirror growing distant, I felt something I hadn't truly felt in years: peace. When I returned to campus after seeing my dad, something shifted inside me. It wasn't instant, like flipping a switch. It was gradual, subtle, like watching the seasons change. The anger that had fueled my drive was no longer burning white hot. Instead, it simmered quietly, replaced by something new: purpose. I immersed myself deeper into my research, spent longer hours in the lab, and began mentoring incoming students who struggled much like I had. One afternoon, Dr. Ellis called me aside. "I see you've been busy," he said, smiling at the group of freshmen gathered around a robot I'd built. "You're becoming quite the mentor around here." I shrugged, embarrassed but secretly proud. I just know how it feels to be lost. He nodded thoughtfully. "You know, Ethan, I've always believed that the best leaders are forged from the toughest paths. You've certainly had your share." Those words resonated deeply. I wasn't just building robots, I was building people up too. And in the process, I was rebuilding myself. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, Jamie and I sat out on the balcony, pizza boxes open, notebooks scattered around us. So she began playfully nudging my shoulder. "What's next for Ethan Walker, robotics prodigy and amateur therapist?" I laughed softly. "Honestly, I don't know. For the first time, I don't feel like I have to have it all figured out. I just want to keep moving forward." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Forward sounds pretty good to me." A quiet buzz interrupted our moment. My phone screen lit up a notification from the Robotics Fellowship Committee. My heart raced slightly as I opened it. Congratulations, Ethan Walker. You've been officially nominated for the National Robotics Innovation Award, recognizing groundbreaking contributions by emerging engineers. Ceremony to be held in New York City next month. More details to follow. My breath caught. National Robotics Innovation Award. This wasn't just a fellowship or local recognition. This was the kind of accolade that changed lives. Jamie noticed my expression. What's up? I handed her the phone, speechless. Her eyes widened. Ethan, this is huge. It was, but unlike before this time, I wasn't thinking about proving anything to anyone else. It wasn't about vengeance or validation. It was purely about potential. My potential. As excitement bubbled within me, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized immediately. My mother. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Ethan, her voice was gentle, softer than I remembered. Your father told me about your visit. I wanted to thank you and tell you how proud I am. I felt my throat tighten. Thank you. I know it doesn't undo what happened, she continued quietly. But I want you to know we're learning. Slowly. Maybe one day we can be part of your life again on your terms. My eyes filled with tears. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a neat bow tied over years of pain, but it was honest. And maybe for now, that was enough. I'd like that, I said softly. After we hung up, I turned back to Jamie, who squeezed my hand gently. How do you feel? I exhaled deeply, feeling lighter than I had in years. Ready. If you're watching this right now, and maybe you've had your own family challenges or difficult conversations, let me know below. Have you ever felt that peace after finally hearing what you needed, even if it wasn't perfect? Drop your experience in the comments. Your story could help someone else heal too. Because sometimes the greatest victories aren't loud. They're quiet, honest conversations that heal old wounds one word at a time. And now, with New York City on the horizon, I knew exactly where I was headed. Forward. New York City was like stepping onto another planet, crowded sidewalks, buzzing with energy, skyscrapers stretching endlessly into the clouds. Lights that burned so brightly the night itself seemed to pulse with possibility. I'd arrived for the National Robotics Innovation Award ceremony, the final stop on a journey that had transformed my life from quiet desperation into undeniable self-determination. On the evening of the ceremony, Jamie adjusted my tie one last time, smiling warmly. Ready? I think so, I said, nerves fluttering in my chest. But is anyone ever really ready? She laughed gently, her eyes sparkling. Just remember, tonight is yours. You've earned this. Walking into the elegant banquet hall at the Marriott Marquis felt surreal. Everywhere I turned, I saw brilliant engineers, famous innovators, and tech pioneers whose TED Talks I'd watched obsessively. And here I was among them, invited, recognized, welcomed. The ceremony began, and I took my seat, heart pounding louder with each passing second. Eventually, my category came up and the lights dimmed. The host read the nominees, each name echoing in the hushed room. Then came the announcement that stopped my world. And this year's National Robotics Innovation Award goes to Ethan Walker, North Mountain Tech. Applause erupted around me, the noise overwhelming yet invigorating. Jamie hugged me tightly, whispering proudly in my ear, "Go get it!" I walked to the stage slowly, carefully absorbing every step. My hands trembled slightly as I accepted the sleek crystal award, its weight solid and reassuring in my palms. Standing before the mic, facing hundreds of expectant eyes, my journey flashed vividly through my mind. The struggle, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and now finally, the triumph. Thank you, I began, voice shaking slightly. I'm truly honored. Not just for this award, but for what it represents, the belief that we can all build our future no matter what past we're handed. I paused, taking a deep breath as emotions surged. A year ago, someone I trusted deeply took away something vital. My sense of choice, my ability to decide my own future. They thought my dreams weren't worth the investment. But in losing everything, I gained the clarity to rebuild from scratch, brick by brick, wire by wire. The audience was utterly silent, listening intently. I learned that no matter what others take from you, they can never steal your capacity to dream and create. Tonight, I'm proof that your future belongs to you alone, and it's always worth fighting for. As I concluded, the hall erupted into thunderous applause. Faces were smiling, people stood from their seats, and the overwhelming support filled me with a sense of pride I'd never felt before. Afterward, as I stood among newfound friends and colleagues, a distinguished woman approached me. Ethan Walker. My name is Dr. Margaret Kennedy, CEO of Next Wave Robotics. Your story inspired me deeply tonight. I believe young visionaries like you can shape our future. Let's talk soon. I could hardly believe it. This was the woman whose company defined the cutting edge of robotics. It would be an honor, I replied, stunned. Returning to Jamie, my heart felt impossibly full. You did it, she beamed. No, I corrected, gently squeezing her hand. We did it. If you're watching this right now, maybe you're dreaming big or feeling stuck, unsure if your hard work matters. Trust me, it does. Your journey matters. If you've ever overcome odds to find your true path, tell me below in the comments. Share your story. Inspire someone else who's still finding their way. Because the real power in sharing our struggles is reminding each other we're never alone. As I walked out into the bustling New York night arm in arm with Jamie, I knew my story was just beginning. Tonight wasn't just an ending, it was the start of something incredible. Returning home from New York was like stepping back into reality after an incredible dream. But unlike before, this reality didn't feel limiting or oppressive. It felt open, ready for the future I was creating. The weeks that followed passed in a steady rhythm of school research, mentoring, and time with Jamie. Graduation was on the horizon, and with each day I felt increasingly sure of where I was headed. Not because the path was perfectly mapped out, but because now I understood how to navigate uncertainty. I had learned to trust myself, to know when to hold on, when to push through, and, most importantly, when to let go. One bright afternoon, Dr. Ellis invited me into his office for a final conversation before graduation. The walls were lined with photos of students, inventions awards, and now my own robotics arm among them. Well, Ethan, he began, warmly leaning back in his chair. It's been quite a journey. I smiled. That's an understatement. You've taught me a lot, he continued, surprising me. Most students come here seeking knowledge. You came looking for something deeper: independence, clarity, identity. And watching you build that for yourself taught me a great deal about strength. I felt my throat tighten slightly. Thank you. Without your support, He raised his hand gently. You did this, Ethan. All I did was give you tools. You took them and built something incredible. Walking out of his office, I felt more prepared for the next chapter than ever before. Graduation day arrived in early summer. Families filled the auditorium, proud and tearful as their loved ones crossed the stage. My parents were not among them, and yet I didn't feel their absence. Jamie and Dr. Ellis cheered from the audience, their faces beaming proud. For the first time, I felt fully content, free from expectations or guilt. Later, as we celebrated beneath the sunny skies, Jamie squeezed my hand gently. What's next, robotics genius? I laughed, feeling more myself than ever before. Honestly, I want to keep building. Not just robots, but spaces where people feel they belong. She smiled knowingly. I think that's exactly where you're meant to be. That summer, I launched a small nonprofit program dedicated to mentoring young people who, like me, found themselves at a crossroads, caught between family expectations and personal dreams. Soon, teenagers and young adults from all backgrounds reached out, sharing stories painfully similar to my own. I listened, shared advice, provided resources, but mostly I assured them they weren't alone. One evening, a 16-year-old named Alex emailed me. My parents told me I was throwing away my future by wanting to become an artist. Reading your story made me feel brave enough to stand up for myself. Thank you for giving me courage. In that moment, I realized the true power of sharing our stories isn't just healing ourselves, it's helping others heal too. If you're watching right now and maybe you're struggling with pressures or expectations from family or others, know this. Your dreams aren't selfish, they're essential. You have every right to build your life on your own terms. And if my journey taught me anything, it's that true freedom starts the moment you choose yourself. Leave a comment below. What's your dream you're working toward? What obstacles have you overcome or are you facing to reach it? Let's talk about it, because your story matters. As the sun set softly that evening, turning the mountains a gentle shade of gold, I knew I'd finally found my purpose. Not in accolades or recognition, not even in proving my parents wrong, but in showing others how to reclaim their voice. I was exactly where I belonged, finally living the life I'd fought so hard to choose. And there was no greater victory than that. Life has a funny way of bringing us full circle back to the places we started, but with eyes that see everything differently. A year after my graduation, I stood once again in the town where it all began. It was late afternoon, the sunlight soft and golden, bathing the familiar streets in nostalgia. The coffee shop, the small bookstore, the park benches all remained unchanged. And yet nothing felt the same. I wasn't here because I missed my past, but because I'd finally made peace with it. I walked quietly past my parents' printing shop, now under new management. It was vibrant again, full of life and possibilities, bustling with customers. There was a bittersweet comfort in knowing it had moved on just as I had. Stopping outside, I glanced in through the large windows, memories of my youth flickering gently in my mind like old home movies. The conflicts and resentments had faded into something gentler, a quiet acknowledgement that everyone, myself included, had done the best they could at the time. As I continued down the sidewalk, a car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down slowly, revealing my mom. She looked healthier, calmer, different somehow. "Ethan," she said softly, a hesitant warmth in her voice. "It's good to see you." "It's good to see you too," I replied sincerely, feeling peace settle gently into my chest. "I wanted you to know," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "We're proud of you, of the man you've become." Those words, simple and honest, filled spaces inside me I hadn't known were empty. "Thank you, Mom," I said quietly, genuinely. "That means more than you know." She smiled gently before driving off, leaving me standing on that familiar street with a heart lighter than ever before. If you're still here with me now, thank you. If you've ever had to walk away to find yourself or to return home and make peace, know you're not alone. Let's keep walking forward together. Share your story below, because every step, no matter how small, brings us closer to who we're meant to be. Until next time, keep choosing you.